Start, give about a 5-minute sort of overview of Signal Insights. And I've created this one pager, company and product profile, as I mentioned before. It is on the Slack workspace in the Signal Insights channel, along with links to the first presentation, which was on June 26th, I believe, or maybe it was July 16th. And I'm recording this one as well, so that people who aren't able to make it can see it. But I think it's much better for people to join these live presentations and demos. So Signal Insights is a company. It's a young company, founded in 2019. They have about 5 people. They are starting out currently about 75K in sales. They're self-funded. I would say that relative to a typical sort of the company or client that we want to represent, they're probably on the young and small side, but I really like their product. And they've got they've made some real headway with some interesting clients. So today we have with us Taylor Trusty, who's a co-founder, and Amber Herndon, who is Director of Marketing and Client Success. And you have their emails there. But if you have a lead that you think would be a good fit for Signal Insights, you should contact me, not Signal Insights directly, because in order for you to get your half of the commission, it's got to come through our network. So the Signal Insights product is also called Signal Insights. It's an AI-driven competitive tracking system that monitors things like site changes, so competitive site changes, news, and it eliminates extraneous mentions and prioritizes the most important updates. It also, I don't know, Taylor, have you launched the newsletter tracking yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. So we'll be.
We are tracking. It's just not in the dashboard.
Not in the dashboard yet. Okay. So there's that's another component that's in beta. They do monitor Facebook. So if the company or competitor has a Facebook page, they'll monitor that. And they also do monitor industry news on their dashboard. Okay. Target customers, mid-sized to large companies, typically B2B. Ideal company is a B2B company with 500 million or more in sales. The target within that would be somebody who works in a strategy group, market insights group, competitive intelligence group. One thing you can do is you can search on your LinkedIn profile for people with those titles, particularly competitive intelligence. And if you're linked directly to them and they seem like they might be a good fit in terms of the size and type of company they work for, that's a great person to reach out to. Pain points they address. So competitive tracking is very labor intensive and time consuming without any AI tools. I actually had a conversation with a guy yesterday who was a fairly senior executive, and Taylor, I think I want to register this, at a insurance company, one of the Blue Cross insurance companies in one of the states. And he says, yeah, they have somebody who does this full time, right? And that's her job. And this type of tool would make her job so much more efficient because she's got to sort of manually go through all of this competitive information. And there are alternative media monitoring tools. They tend to be part of larger PR management systems. They're expensive. That can be complicated. And their focus is more on, I think, media exposure as opposed to what's actually happening, what the companies are actually doing. So their focus is, are your competitors getting lots of media exposure or not? Mentioned 3 types of competitors, plus, of course, manual monitoring. So there are competitor tracking software products, Crayon, Compite, I don't know how you pronounce that.
We've heard it every way, but the understanding is that it's Compite.
Compite and Koros. They can be somewhat complicated to use, and they don't offer the level of customization and support that that Signal Insights offers. The big names are Cision and Meltwater in the PR world. They are really oriented at media tracking as opposed to competitive tracking. And then there's some more self-serve options like Google Alerts, which most of you will be familiar with, and Owler that don't do as good a job. Well, certainly Google Alerts doesn't do anything really to screen out the extraneous, doesn't prioritize based on relevance or importance, and doesn't track some of the other things that the Signal Insights product tracks. Our arrangement with Signal Insights is we will get 20% of the revenue for 3 years from the first invoice, and then half of that, as is our standard, goes to the member who brings the lead. So I'm going to hand it over to Taylor to share, and Amber is going to actually monitor the questions that anybody might have. If you do have questions, put them in the chat, because I think that's the best way to get the question in the moment, and then we'll come back to it after Taylor does his presentation and demo. So Taylor, let me see, what do I have to do? If I stop sharing, you should be able to grab it, I think.
We're good. You should be able to see now.
I can see it, and if everybody would go on mute, except for obviously Taylor, and if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them in the order in which they show up. So take it away, Taylor.
Thanks, Michael. This is part of what we're solving for. What I've shown here, I'm on the Google News for GE appliances. This applies for every major brand. If you're a top 10 brand in any industry, this happens to be appliances. But if you're in industrial flooring, if you're in robotics or palletizing, this is kind of what Google News looks like, where the top few results look pretty good. You know, so this is about hiring and expansion. This is from 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it quickly skates into this. So as you see, by result 5, we see what look like good news stories, and they are all garbage. So this electric range market 2020, new comprehensive report, smart connected residential water heater market, this electric kitchen appliances, these are all spam, every single one of them. Some of these are hijacked websites. So they find exploits in WordPress and then they publish what look like real news articles on the backs of legitimate websites. So that's how they show up in here. Some of them are just set up to be garbage websites from day one. But this is very common. And the problem is that, as you can see, this is a legitimate article. This is from Yahoo, but these are not. And so this is one of the big issues. If you're a major player in any industry, on depending on things like Google News alerts, is that I've done this for Google News, but if you sign up for a Google News alert and you say, hey, look, show me the news for my competitors or for myself every day, these things I just showed you will show up in the results. And what we see is that people get sick of it and they start ignoring them. So that's part of what we're solving for here. As a little bit of background, I owned a few businesses. My last company I owned for 12 years. We were a digital marketing agency. We primarily targeted the same market, and I sold that in 2018. Amber actually used to work for me in that business, and she's here in this business as well. And I wanted this. I wanted a product that tracked competitors. And so that when I sold, that was why we started to build this. So this, I'll kind of walk through a quick presentation here. We're turning kind of manual work that you see over here on the left-hand side of tracking competitors and this, this manual, reading these Google News alerts into a really, really nice dashboard, and more importantly, into an email. And I'll walk through a demo in a minute. And so this is kind of the problem. A lot of companies are recognizing the need to stay on top of themselves. When am I mentioned in the news as a brand, and also competitors? So how do they solve for this? This is actually the most common one. So the most common one is an ad hoc employee approach. Somebody's an analyst on staff and they're doing it. A lot of them sign up for Google News alerts. Every single one of them has told me that they stop. At some point, the signal noise ratio gets too poor and they ignore them. And sometimes they're using things like Crayon. We're working with a major payroll provider right now who's using Crayon. And the way that we go head to head is we allow unlimited users, so as many users as they'd like. Whereas the competing products, Brand Total, Crayon, et cetera, they have a very complex pricing where when you add new users and new competitors, you're going to pay more. So this is our solution. It's really, really simple. That this is part of what we're screaming here is doesn't really require training. It's quite quick and it's consistent, that there's no human intervention. This is all done by crawlers and artificial intelligence, some machine learning, to filter out that spam that I was just showing you. So, our model is it's web-based. This is all software as a service, no human. It's relatively inexpensive when compared to the competitors, and also, rolling this out to your whole sales team, and everything is remote. So this is a case study. So Toyota Material Handling of North America, they're the largest forklift manufacturer in the world, they had no real competitive intelligence platform, so they didn't have a way to track competitors. They do it the way most of these companies do it, which is the head of sales or their head of marketing, maybe signs up for the competitors' email blasts, and every month or every 2 months is like, oh, hey, I heard that Crown did something. Let's go Google them. It's this ad hoc approach. They hear something happens, usually from a sales or a dealer team. The dealers will say, hey, did you guys hear that Crown, just launched this new product? And then some salesperson gets embarrassed and says, oh, crap, no, I didn't know that. And then they tell their sales manager, and that's the way it kind of filters throughout an organization. In manufacturing and in B2B, this is very, very common. That's kind of this bottoms-up approach of whoever's talking to the customer hears things, and then that rolls up to, let's say, a marketing team. So what we did here is we initially rolled this out to the marketing team. At the very beginning of COVID, we discovered about a key product launch. We learned about a new e-commerce initiative that one of the competitors rolled out. And then that led to us being rolled out to the whole BI team, business intelligence team, the dealer network, the sales team, and then this says next week, but this is from the last presentation. We actually fully rolled it out to the executive team. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the way that we can roll out inside of a company. What I'd say works well is we start with a small team, they see the value, and then it rolls from there. And because of the way our pricing works, they're not penalized for adding on an additional team later because they can just bring on the additional users at no cost. This is our target. We're targeting companies with revenue of greater than $500 million, because we don't, the name is Signal Insights. The platform isn't telling them what to do. And that's an important distinction. So it's not like, hey, here's all this intelligence. What you should do is launch this new advertising campaign that targets these 61 people and then does this. That is not what we're doing. That there's a side of this product that requires a human to look at what's going on and then make decisions. And these smaller companies oftentimes don't have the bandwidth to do that. They don't have, when they're seeing this data, their question oftentimes is, okay, what do I do with this? And if that's the question, we're not a good fit. Where we're a good fit is when they have the ability, they have the bandwidth, they have the resources to kind of actionize these things, let's say. We do best in industries with, the competitors need to be doing things. And I'll show you why in a second. But the competitors, it needs to be a fairly competitive industry, and also one where, they're doing digital marketing and they have a good web presence. Certain industries don't have that. Like a lot of food, for instance, certain food segments, there's not a lot going on online. And so we're not a good fit. The kind of roles we're looking at, these are kind of branding, strategic planning. We've had a lot of success in the last 6 weeks in sales roles. So business development. These are senior vice president of biz dev, senior vice president of sales. These are people who are looking for ways to get a leg up over the competition. And
hey, Taylor,
yep.
You sound surprised.
So initially, I thought it would be marketing people, and we have marketing clients, but you're right. It was, I guess, fairly surprising that's been the big push. Also, salespeople, when they have a new tool and they go to the executive team, they're like, yeah, sure. Whereas when marketing people have a new tool, their response is, oh, we should work it into the budget, and how's this going to work, and who's going to use it? So our sales approach is also different in that way.
God bless the impulsive.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. So in terms of personas, these are some of the marketing personas that work well for this. You know, they're usually people whose jobs are to kind of manage a market or a product line, and they and so more information to them is good. What I'd also say, and this was true in my last business too, we make these people look really good. They wouldn't tell us that. I mean, some of them do, but you know, when they look smart going into an executive meeting, or when they look smart going into a meeting saying, "Hey, did you know that da 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 just did this?" They look really, really good, and that helps them get promoted. Helps them, you know, look like a hero, and that's part of my job too. And that's good. Competition. Michael touched on this a little bit. I'd say our most direct competitor is a platform called Crayon, who's mentioned here at the top. We don't oftentimes go up against these others. In a lot of our clients, Meltwater's in there. Meltwater's usually in with a comms team or with a PR team. In my experience, Meltwater does not get rolled out a whole lot to the whole team, but Crayon, we are seeing. Crayon's more expensive than us, and the way that and their pricing is very obtuse. This payroll provider I mentioned, you know, they're ending their contract with Crayon in September, and the reason that they told me was they only allowed us 2 seats. You know, our budget, we could only have 2 users. When we wanted to roll it out inside the company, inside more of the company, you know, we were penalized from doing so. Now I have to go back and try to get additional budget, and we just decided not to. What I'd say though is that what we're oftentimes going up against is people doing things like Google News alerts because they're free, and then they start to ignore them, and an analyst or someone on staff who is managing this as a manual process. Okay, so let me show you. So this is what the product actually looks like. So the product is really 2 parts. One is this dashboard, and one is the email. So this dashboard is updated 4 times a day. So we're pulling in the latest news. The news that we're pulling in is everything from, you know, this is a magazine, basically a material handling magazine. So a lot of these kind of trade publications, down to bloggers, and then of course, all the way up to anything like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, et cetera. If it shows up in Google News, we will pull it in. The question is, how does it get filtered? So we have 4 filters when they come in. One is a story, which is when the Toyota in this case, or Crown or Heister, is the target of the story. So they are the focus of the story. These carry a lot of weight. One is a mention, which is when the entity is just mentioned somewhere in the article. These carry less weight. One is spam, which are those report spam, industry spam, all that spam that I was talking about. And then one is called not an article, which is when something is actually not a news story. It's, you know, it's kind of garbage. So this whole top part is dedicated to pulling in that news. If I look here, you know, I can see the type of news. Everything from kind of profile pieces, which is fairly common, to interviews with people. This is kind of a fun example. This is from Australia, actually, about the Melbourne Zoo in Australia, to finance-related news. Initially, we were filtering out anything about finance, and then what I've heard over and over and over again is like, no, I want to hear when my competitors release quarterly earnings. What they don't want to hear is when hedge funds go in and out of positions and kind of the mess that comes in the finance news. And so we walk that line. You can see right here, Heister Yale declares a quarterly dividend. So this is the kind of thing that we pick up. So that's this whole top part, which is news. You can see we group similar articles. So these 2 similar articles are about this dividend. So that's the whole top part. For those same competitors, we're tracking website changes. So these website changes are typically banners on the homepage. So these are banners here. And some of them are kind of fun or funny. This one is, yeah. So if you notice, this was about a month ago now. Heister launched this banner on their homepage, and it had these 2 nice looking gentlemen inside of a warehouse. Well, a week later, they photoshopped in masks on the guys. And then they added this social distancing solution down here in the bottom left corner. So we catch kind of funny things like that when these banners change, but also consequential things like new, that this is talking about the tax code for Yale, new product launches. We've seen all kinds of things like extended warranties announced as these banners up at the top before they're even released as a press release. So that's these key website changes. What we're working on right now, and we've got this somewhat working, we're fleshing this out, is some of my clients, they want to track when the competitors add new logos to their website. So these logos would be things like distributor logos, dealer logos, customer logos, as well as tracking testimonials. So when do, if the competitor has customer testimonials there, maybe they have 6 of them listed, they want to track when those happen. We're doing this for a couple clients, but it's not perfect. So that's why I mentioned it. It's harder than it sounds, whereas these banners are a little bit easier. So that's the website changes that we're tracking. For social media, as Michael mentioned, we're tracking the competitors on Facebook. So this is not a social listening platform, and that we're not listening for customers to talk about the brands. We're listening for the brands to talk about themselves. In the last 30 days, Toyota has posted on Facebook 10 times, Crown's posted 22, Hyster's posted 30. And so the question is, I don't have time to read all those posts. Just show me, what's the most important post? So we create an engagement score for all of those posts, and then goes back to when we started tracking. And that's this 7.4, 9.2, 9.1, 9.7. Those are the numbers that you see right above here. This gives context. So this is the top post of this month. This is the most engaged with post. This is the most engaged with Crown post for this month. But how important is it in the grand scheme of things? And that's this 7.4, 9.2. It's a scale of 10. And the way we determine the engagement scores is a combination of likes, comments, and shares. We create a simple kind of little algorithm or formula really that determines the level of engagement based on those 3 factors. So that's social media. Press releases and blogs, we're pulling the press releases directly off the competitors' newsrooms. And then if they're publishing content inside of a blog or a white paper area, we're pulling that content in as well. So everything from, this 6 things to know is a blog post. This is a blog post by MCF. This Toyota is actually a press release issued by the company. So you have a mixture of all the content that the companies are releasing themselves. The question might be, well, why do we track this down here and we're tracking the news up above? In my experience, some of the press releases that get issued here can be consequential, and they do not get picked up in the news. So the only way you'd find them is if you were actually looking on the competitor's newsroom or press room and pulled it off of there. So that's why we purposely go out and crawl those sites and pull them in here in this separate area. Google search rank is where do I rank against my competitors in Google. This is designed to be not perfect. This is updated every day. This is designed to be directional. So it's, are we trending up or are we trending down? You could see, we're in the last 30 days, Mitsubishi has remained at the number 71 position, which is code for nobody's looking, nobody goes that'd be on the 7th, 8th page. Crown has moved down 18 spots for this forklift sales. You can see electric forklifts, you don't have a lot of movement on the first page. All these dashes indicate in the last 30 days, nobody's moved. But these green arrows indicate when somebody goes up and the red arrows indicate when somebody's trending down. So this is just a way from a high level to see how are we moving up or down against the competitors in Google. The right-hand side is industry news. So this is pulling in the news that the clients are already reading, things like forkliftaction.com or material handling today. So we pull in that news based on what they tell us that they'd like to see. What we can also do here is topic filtering and topic extraction. So for that payroll company I was mentioning, they want to know when there is M&A in the accounting space. So in other words, when does an accounting firm merge with another accounting firm, or when does somebody buy them? And so I said, okay, great. Can you give me a list of the accounting firms that you'd, like to track? And they said, sure, there's 100,000 of them. And I was like, okay, well, we're not gonna be tracking 100,000 accounting firms. And so one way we can get around that is to come to find out that if you're an accounting firm and you get bought, you basically get written about on 1 of 3 websites. There's only 3 websites that really cover the accounting industry in this way. And one of them is accountingtoday.com. And so what we're doing is we're pulling in all the news from Accounting Today and then filtering for specific keywords: acquisition, merger, M&A. So there's a subset of keywords. And when those articles, when the headline of those articles have those have those kind of keywords in them, then we pull it in here and show it, which is largely for their sales team. Gives them kind of a hit list. To wrap up here, everything I've shown you is in this dashboard. but I'd say that the majority of our product gets used as an email. So it gets emailed to as many people as they'd like. It can go to the whole marketing team, go to the whole sales team, go to the executive team. And this email shows up daily, weekly, or monthly. And it shows what same information I just showed on the dashboard, except just neatly packaged into an email that's really designed for a phone. So they get these in the morning and they can click on any of these, use them without being logged in. Which is key. So they can click on any of these articles and go and read them. If they click on, as I scroll down, if they click on some of these, like the website changes, it'll dump them into the platform. So then they would need to be logged in. But for the news, they can click and see anything that they like. Yeah, I think that's about it. What questions? I saw some things coming in and out.
Yeah, why don't I go to the questions? And Amber's been doing a great job, I think, of addressing them. So Gary said, do you sell to digital marketing agencies? And Amber's response is, we haven't, but we're open to it. We're having conversations with Ogilvy now. And my question to Amber is that Ogilvy for PR or for digital marketing? And is it for their own use or for their clients?
It's actually the research team.
Yeah, it's for the research team for their clients. So oftentimes from an account manager, they will get a request to put together a report that's similar to the type of data that we provide, but then they have to, look at that data, provide insights and recommendations. So they're looking at using our tool to be able to pull the data and save their research team some time there so that they can focus more on the insights and recommendations.
Okay, so what that tells me is that you guys are working with Ogilvy, but if other people have good contacts at some of the other big marketing agencies for their research teams in particular. So Ogilvy is its own. Is Ogilvy part of one of a bigger brand?
Yeah.
What are they part of?
WPP.
WPP, okay. But I guess even then, you could sell to Ogilvy and you can sell to other WPP agencies, I assume. So any good contacts at big agencies, particularly in the research area. And then another question from Delita, are any of your clients in-house PR or comms folks? You want to answer that, Amber?
Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, so I had answered that on here. So we work with Viga, who's a leader in the plumbing manufacturing space, and my main point of contact there is a manager of PR and communications.
Okay, in-house PR communications, yeah, and we actually have we're in discussions right now with somebody who's in PR. She's actually a member of this group, a member of the network, who is also full-time at Verizon, and she's in PR, so she's trying to raise the profile there. I asked the question, how do you differentiate between minor and major website changes? And Amber, you want to explain that, Amber?
Yes, so Taylor may be able to explain this better, but typically during onboarding, I talk with the client to figure out, what is it on the competitors' websites they're interested in tracking? Is it the homepage banner? A lot of times that's their main interest because that's the first place they go to post updates related to COVID or new products or promotions that they're launching. Or it could be like Taylor said, we're working right now because we have a client interested in knowing when they add a new client of logo to their own website. So if a competitor books a new client or a new company and adds that, or they have a testimonial slider and they want to know when a new testimonial is added. So we work directly with the client to find out what it is that they want to track on their competitors' websites. And then as we build the dashboard, we teach the crawler to go to the site, find that specific section, look for a change, and if there is one, it takes a screenshot and puts that inside of their dashboard like you saw during the demo.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, the technical way it works is it runs a headless Chrome renderer, renders the page, and then it looks for a specific div. So we're looking for a container and it looks for change within the container. If it sees it, grabs a screenshot. So that's the way that it works. Yeah. Okay. We just teach it in the way that Amber said.
Right. Gary asked, do you add competitors you want to track, or does the platform pull top competitors?
we add the competitor. It's a by hand process. So the client tells us, and we do a little bit of research with the client to kind of do that. The competitors can be changed too. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, and I think your base package is the company, so the brand that you're working with, and 4 competitors, right?
We increase it to 6. So it's
Increase to
it's the
6.
company plus, so 7 total. So the brand for the client itself plus 6 competitors. Yep.
And what is that price point?
1,500.
Wow.
A month.
So that's a good deal.
Yeah.
It looks like you're pricing very aggressively. Okay. Let's see.
Well, to be specific, if somebody is manually tracking competitors, you could manually do that for 2 or 3 competitors. You know, it sucks, but you could do that. Tracking 6 competitors and yourself is a pain. You know, it like, even if you have spreadsheets and doing it, so the value between tracking, say, 3 or 4 and tracking 6, you know, seems like it may only be, you know, 40 or 50% more valuable. Turns out like it's immensely more valuable, because the more competitors we add, it's far more difficult to track. As you add on 1 or 2 more, the marginal cost is quite high in adding for doing it manually, versus for our platform, you know, it's just robots doing it all.
Right. Okay, cool. Larry, let's see. So Keith asked, are you monitoring the competitor sites for changes? I think that's been answered. So the answer is yes. And Larry Joseph asked, or says, I'm working with 2 companies that are U.S. arms of German companies. They may not be at 500 million, but the parent company may be. Are you able to do this for European companies if you need a translator? My wife is originally from Germany.
Yeah, so we're talking right now with a European company. It's designed for English only. So that's what I'd say, is that there's actually a filter to filter out non-English results, because some of my clients' brands are global in nature, and we were getting a lot of results that are not in English. So while in theory it could, so the issue is that the machine learning models that we've built and trained are all in English. And so things like spam and what is an article and what is not, what's a story, what's a mention, those are all in English. So it's not restricted to the US, you know, in terms of where we're collecting news. You know, I showed the Australian news that was in that Toyota dashboard, but it is English only. And I suspect it'll be that way for a while, because let's say we added German, we would need to retrain the models for what does German industry report spam and things look like. So that's why.
Well, to clarify, a lot of the work they do in Europe also is done in English, but I'm just concerned about the $500 million point where this makes sense, because the U.S. division may not be at that point, whereas they would have to get the approval from the parent company to do this. So that it would be more attractive if the parent company could also, you know, in Germany, could also do this.
Yeah, I mean, the 500 million isn't a hard and set, you know, like we certainly wouldn't turn down smaller clients. Yeah, but if the question is, would the German parent be able to pull in German news, that answer is no. If the question is, would the German parent be able to pull in European news that is in English, then that answer is definitely yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
sure.
And if Larry, if you have somebody, let's talk if you think might be a good fit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. And then Keith asked to follow up, is that company-wide unlimited user license?
Yeah, this is something recent that we're doing because the competitors to us, nearly all of them charge for additional users, and we've seen this a huge point of friction for the prospects and clients. So the answer is yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what is, I mean, you and I, Taylor, have discussed sort of a pricing tiers, and the package that you mentioned is, you know, company plus 6 competitors. So 7 companies that you're tracking. Beyond that, I guess the price starts going up. Is there any other dimension that would increase? Because you had mentioned earlier that, to me, that if it's a different division, in other words, if Toyota, you know, sports cars or Lexus wanted to do this, it's still Toyota, but it's a completely different business, right?
Right. So to be clear, Toyota Material Handling operates autonomously over Toyota Motors or Toyota Industries or they have a ton of companies. It is not a global license for all Toyota brands, right? It is for Toyota Material Handling, which is an autonomous company. So that's what I'd say about that. The way that the pricing goes up is in the number of competitors that they want to track, the number of dashboards that they want to see. So for some of our clients, like one of my clients is a family holding company. They own 5 companies. It's this family office that owns 5 companies. Each of those companies are in their own industries. One's in finance, one's in software. One's a brewery. And so they have separate dashboards for each of those companies, and each of them have their own users. They have that. So that is what steps up kind of the pricing and complexity, is when some of those things get added. Additional dashboards. Also, we have the ability to integrate with Okta, which is a single sign-on provider. And so for some of these large companies, they don't want to tell us, here are the 131 users to use. They just want us to integrate with something like Okta. So that would be additional as well.
I have a question. Actually, you mentioned Brewery. I know somebody who runs the beer industry newsletter. Now, obviously, they're producing their own news, but I guess they're also tracking other people's news. Is that a potential target?
I mean, potentially. Potentially, yeah.
All right, I'll look into it. Okay, let's see.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hi, David. How's it going? How are sales? What are the objections? What's it like out there for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, so this is, so to be clear, we're a startup. So we raised some money last year. We launched to the public in April. So we had some pilots who worked with us during the build phase and all that initial work last year through April. One of my clients got laid off. One got, their budget was cut. They've mandatory, everything had happened during COVID. So that was tough. So April and May, I would say in particular, were tough. Since July, it's been like surprisingly good. I have a lot of background in the manufacturing space because those were my clients in my last business. And a lot of, let's say, industrial manufacturing, anything having to do with robots, anything in logistics, they're all booming right now. And so we've had a lot of success there. So it's especially in the last, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, it's been quite good. Early on, it was quite tough. And, people couldn't even sign contracts. They were like, look, I'd love this, but I don't even have the ability to sign on a new coffee provider.
Yeah, so that's and that's a relevant time, not irrelevant, but that's such a moot time because everyone's freaking out. So what my question is really about, now that things are picking back up, what are the objections? And therefore, how are you staying ahead of that and providing those certain elements that will trip up a buyer? It's probably not price, it's probably convenience. Tell us a little bit about what that objection cycle is and how you're handling it.
Number one objection is, what do I do with this? And that is difficult for us to combat because we're not a consulting firm, right? I can give some guidance, but at the end of the day, if they don't have internal capacity to do things with this, it's not going to be very valuable. Another objection, was around the annual commitment. What we've started doing recently is allowing more flexibility around the annual commitment. So we say, look, it's a 12-month agreement. If you need to cancel with 30-day out, then okay. We're not offering that blanket across the board, but when we get that objection, we're giving more flexibility in that way. Another objection is, we were working with this holding company that owned a bunch of material, basically the manufacturer flooring materials. And the guy really liked it. We put together all these dashboards. He went up to his CEO and his CEO said, A, we're in a spending freeze, which I wish I'd known earlier. But B, he's like, can we get this through Google Alerts? But clearly the CEO doesn't use the Google Alerts, right? Like it's his staff that uses them, and they're the ones who are bringing this to him. So it seemed like a culture kind of challenge. Another I would say is the pricing. So some people look at this and they say, I really don't care that much about my competitors. Because they have to care in order to want to do this. Or my industry doesn't change a lot. That this we hear, they get in and they say, look, you know, my industry's small. You know, I know all my competitors, and when they do stuff, I already hear about it. And I'm like, okay, no problem. We're not for you. So, you know, we're closing 20 to 30% of the deals, and which is pretty decent in software, but it also means that, you know, we're not a good fit for a lot of people.
Do you think if you had a dream prospect, again, 500 million is generic, but industry wise, where there's a hairball of connectivity, you know, energy, for example, a lot of competition within that, manufacturing definitely makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking to NG, the giant energy company, again on Monday. In terms of dream, I'd say that there are two. One would be a major consumer brand like a Verizon, MasterCard, someone like that. And we're talking to both of them right now. The other, and I'd say that this is more like a realistic dream, is to just really corner the industrial and B2B manufacturing space. You know, and the US still manufactures a whole lot of things and a lot of volume. North America, not just the US, but, you know, North America manufactures a lot. That I would say, you know, if we have hundreds of clients in the manufacturing sector and it's a bunch of brands that nobody's ever heard of, that is perfectly acceptable to me. What I know from experience and from talking to these companies, the sexy ones, you know, that do $700 million a year manufacturing certain types of steel, they don't get talked to by tech companies. You know, Salesforce isn't beating down their door. You know, especially if they're in the middle of Pennsylvania, the middle of Ohio, middle of Indiana. And so, you know, we have some, that gives us an advantage because we're new and cool and sexy to them.
Hey, can I jump in with a question?
Sure.
I'm Alan Winnicott. I own a PR and social media firm. We're a small firm and we don't have those big, deep-pocketed clients that you were talking about. But, you know, the way we handle Cision and Muckrack is that we amortize it over the scope of our clients. So our clients could not pay $30,000 a year, but 6 clients could pay $5,000 a year, especially if we break it out to, we bill them back as an expense, $400 a month. They're not really going to feel it. So my question to you is, as a PR firm, if I came to you and offered that kind of model and said to you, I need you to price out work for half a dozen clients from different businesses, they're not at all related, so that I can, you know, spread it out over my clients, how would you be able to customize something like that?
That's exactly what we're doing for Ogilvy, actually, is that exact approach. So each client gets their own dashboard, that the pricing is reduced so that they can either bill it directly to the client at cost or they can make money on it if they'd like. So that's the exact model that we're working with Ogilvy. Also, there's an opportunity to do white labeling if of interest. So yeah.
In this case, we probably would, yeah, or we might, but it's really more just, you know, getting them to reimburse us for the cost, and so it has to be something that, you know, they feel is manageable, because we don't even really, when we send them back billing precision, we don't get into like what it is. We just say media, you know, media database charges, and nobody really complains because it's not a lot of money.
Yes. So the pricing that we have with Ogilvy is $500 a month per each of their clients with a minimum of 3. So it's still $1,500 a month, but it's $500 a month for each of for each of the clients.
And that
That's
includes
really
that includes the 6 competitors for that client.
You know, each competitor has a 6 competitor, or each client has 6 competitors.
So it's basically it's a third of the standard price.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And is Ogilvy responsible for sort of learning how to set it up for the client so that you're not burdened with that?
We're kind of playing with that. I mean, in my experience, I used to own an agency, and I have a lot of friends in the agency space. In my experience, you know, like you could put it on the agency, but at the end of the day, it ends up being kind of the platform provider that does a lot of that. So that's I think we're planning on. Mm-hmm. But if a self-service model works well, so here's the struggle too. A lot of what I'm talking about requires a lot of setups. So like finding the divs, you know, it's not something an agency person would want to do. They don't want to like go and identify what's the banner div called? Oh, that's called homepage -1-hero.
Can you charge a setup fee per client that way to cover your cost?
Right now we're not.
Okay.
I mean, we get good at it.
Alan,
it's
what are your thoughts on that? I mean, let's say it's $500 a month that you're just passing through, but to set up the company and 5 competitors is, I don't know, $2,000. Could you get them?
We'd have to figure out a way to weigh that off too, I guess, or we would want to anyway if we could.
Right. No, it wouldn't be you. It would be them. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's reasonable. So, again, it's just, with the clients, when they get their invoices, right, they're just looking at the number. And, if it's a number that's a red flag to them, they're gonna send it back. If it's not, they'll just pay it.
Okay. Other questions. So that's good for anybody who's thinking about PR. I mean, it's good to know that Ogilvy's doing this. I guess it's for their marketing clients, not necessarily PR clients.
And Alan, this is probably better kind of one-on-one, but when I've talked to PR agencies, they really want to go deep. So that's why they use things like Muck Rack and Cision and Meltwater. There's an immense amount of data that they want to collect, and that's not really what we're designed to do, right? So we're not giving things like how many, what's the reach of these content pieces or articles. So that's why I'd say we've talked to a lot of agencies and they like it. Ogilvy has really jumped on it, but it's really the research team that's become so interested. I mean, what do you think of that from a PR perspective? And that?
Well, I think that at a certain point, in order to provide value to our clients, we need to construct a narrative out of the data. So, I think that would be a conversation we'd have to understand exactly what you can deliver, and then the steps it would take for us to build that narrative. And it's something we're used to doing as long as we have the tools. So we'd have to really look at it in a more granular way than we need to do on this call.
Got it.
Very good. David, you're muted. David Cutler, you're muted.
Hi, we could take this offline. I don't want to waste anyone's time, but I'm going to say a couple of things really quickly, and we can talk about it later, just in case anyone wants to talk about it now. One, I think you have an opportunity to sell to the salespeople, to sales division, sales managers, sales coaches, sales consultants. I think is an absolutely huge opportunity. The nimbleness, the cheapness, the inexpensive is phenomenal, and that's what salespeople need. They just need somebody whispering in their ear about something they can go tell their client about, so they build that sales, build the reputation. So that's number one: sales product, sales product, sales product. Number two. I would suggest you guys build a competitive matrix, even if you look like a dick, even if you're like pointing people out, seriously, because there's no time to beat around the bush and be nice. And if it's honest and sincere, then it's a competitive matrix that a lot of people will share. And then you can say price points and everything. You get in trouble. People are going to hate you for it, but you're doing something wonderful. And I think if you do it with the right, and maybe you get someone else to do it, like a sales association, the foundation of sales, something. Let me do it or something like that. And I take the heat because I do it all the time. Just look at me. Third, you should practice what you preach and have your own tool being used for your own industry. So you're actually assessing research, and there's your feed, and you start. That's your promo tool. Everyone in this call and everyone you've ever talked to says, here, you want to see what's actually going on in this, and here are your 6 competitors and all that. So you actually demonstrate your product by talking about, it's very meta, and I'd be excited about looking at that. So one level deeper than that is, why don't you take on COVID, look for the different solutions. There's a company called Cleared for Work, which a friend of me is trying to help them sell, which is a tool that allows you to track your employees. IBM is using it. They've built it up over the years. I'm not trying to pitch it now, but my point is it's one of the tools, one of the services that can be used to evaluate your employees so you can actually get back to work and see who has been approved and cleared for work. So that would be another promotional opportunity where you're saying you're giving this stuff away and you're assessing what's going on in this very, very, very important category. I could go political about the election coming up, but I don't want anything to do with that. Not in that way.
No politics
for this conversation. Let's get a couple beers in us, and we can really have it out.
Right. So that's great, David. Those are great suggestions.
Yeah, super. I took
and the last point is, can we on this call get access to it so we can kick it around and play with it, so we can be demonstrations of your sales force, of your field, of your fans.
So, I mean, in terms of if you've got somebody who you think should see this, come to me, so that we can, what Taylor and his team have done, at least I've seen them do for Verizon, obviously it's a big name, is they set up a custom, example, right? They said, we're interested in AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and maybe it was one other, I can't remember. And then within that, certain like 5 topics. And so they set up a dashboard. So for those bigger opportunities, they're willing to do that type of really customized demo. It's almost, it's almost a complete setup. I'm sure there'd be more other things that they would do as well to customize it to the client's need. But if it's a real good prospect and we get through one meeting and they like it and they want a demo, there's potential to do that.
Right. So
I like the idea of the sample dashboard. We took a note on that.
What's a category that everyone's interested in? Well, one might be, my first point was the actual competitive analysis industry.
Right.
And now you're the client. And with a name like Taylor Trusty, you're a brand, you're an avatar, you have the look. Come on, you should definitely make it you.
And he's from Indiana. No, Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah.
Very wholesome. And it fits right into the trusted referral network. That's why
I know.
That's why we get along so well.
That's right.
So anyway, by the way, if you ever need to use your name in a company, you're going to have a problem because the word trust and any derivative thereof is controlled because it's associated with banks. So I found that out because I'm trying to create a DBA with Trusted Referral Network, and you have to get approval from the the legal department of the state.
Oh, there goes my future plans.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ignore him. Just go with the name. It's a fantastic name, and seriously, lead with it. And you're a superhero. You got to get a cape, a tee. We can go on, but I'm actually 100% serious. You have the agency background, the promotional mindset. I see it, I smell it, but you're probably a bit too nice and patient and polite to actually step out and do the superhero thing. But I think you should prove us all wrong and do that.
My co-founder tells me this every day.
Yeah, I see it.
Taylor, you're too nice.
Yeah, I see.
David will help you do that. He's
like you piss me off every day. And I get you pissed off, and really that's what we're trying to get to in a very friendly way.
All right, we're gonna have to wrap it up. It's just a few minutes and so I want to thank Taylor and Amber for coming on. There's nothing as good as doing this sort of live demo with the real live questions and the feedback and a few laughs. And so, keep in mind opportunities. If something just crossed your mind, Alan, that was a great concept, and I'm glad you brought that up because now we can think about other companies, other PR companies, and we know the deal that you cut with Ogilvy. We could perhaps repeat that with somebody else. So even large marketing agencies that have a research group that would want to stay on top of this stuff on behalf of their clients and can pass it through. I like the new pricing. It's very aggressive. Doesn't give us as much to collect, but listen, if we sell more business, that's great. Any ideas, any leads, don't be shy, right? Larry, definitely let's talk about your German company connection.
Jawohl.
Jawohl, exactly. We have another one coming up on the 27th for solo segment at 1:00. Similar thing, similar structure. Again, I will post this recording to the our YouTube channel. We have our own YouTube channel so that you can look at it, or people who haven't seen this can see the latest. So thank you all. If you have questions about the product, any more questions, please do email me, and I will forward them along, and certainly any leads. So Taylor and Amber and everyone on the call, thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Nice job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.